This is a presentation of the clinical eye-openers. Welcome to the site tour. In essence, and in brief, this website is about morphogenesis, that is the shape of things, in this case, the shape of human beings, the process of morphogenesis. When we look at the shape of things in humans, very often we find signs that we know are beyond the normal range, and if there are multiple of these signs, we call them the developmental syndrome X, Y, or Z. Abnormal signs of morphogenesis is the field of dysmorphogenesis. And why is this important that the clinicians distinguish such nuances? Is because it accelerates the diagnosis. A clinician with expertise will immediately propose that this infant has an extra chromosome, and not have the parents wait for days on end and after several $1,000s of laboratory tests tell them of what is the cause of this baby's troubles. So in essence, Clinical Eye Openers presents Provocative Images, poses the question to you, do you see? What do you see? Because I see certain things here and here and here and here, but I don't know if you see them. And it seems to me that looking at one of these pictures every other day or every third day or whatever provides you with an opportunity to become a dysmorphologist without effort. This image, you can view it on your telephone and read what I or another expert sees, or this one, or this one. But visual information comes in many styles and perspectives. So to accommodate all of that, we assembled 8 sorts of visual channels or galleries. One is the collection of images that illustrates stories, believe it or not, very important. The main central gallery is science. This is the one you're going to see very often on your tablet or telephone if you so wish. Then there's a channel of clinical clusters of images. We'll explain the others in a minute. These 3 are important for the following reasons. Because they let us illustrate definitions that very often healthcare providers don't have in mind. And those are the principles of clinical genetics, teratology, and the subspecialty dysmorphology. The goal, you can read Stop the Motion and read at leisure or visit our website, but in a few words, the goal is to enhance the clinical eye of clinicians to recognize developmental disorders in order to speed up the diagnosis and avoid false interpretation of meaningless laboratory testing. You see what I see? What is the signal of this? What is this telling us? That requires knowledge. And for whom is all of this? It is for students of any age. We define student as anybody interested in learning more than they know. Nobody has seen enough. Every physician can learn from seeing more. And this also includes educators, because each one teach one is the fundamental principle of medicine. And how we do that and what we do it indeed with these provocative images. What do you see? Do you see what I see? Do you know what signal this may be? I have a proposition. You may agree or not, but my proposition may speed up the diagnosis rather dramatically. So illustrated here is different clusters of visually intense or highly illustrated resources. Behind this label we already saw are galleries of signs. And then here we have a gallery of tutorials. Then we have clinical pearls, which is in essence the wisdom of clinicians with long-standing experience that they then package and transmit to those who will follow them. Then there are capital or world-class presentations by world-class experts, and they facilitate the memorization of what does a sign represent. A signal has to become a sign only if you can read the signal, and to read the signal these presentations provide you with the rationale to remember that. And not all is work, some has to be fun. And here we have an illumination of terms, of medical terminology. Here then is the word belly, and of course some of you will guess that this has to do with bellow, the bag of wind, if you like. But what about abdomen? Well, abdomen has to do with belly and abduction and so forth. Here is a channel of free videos for educators to rely upon. So let's see this important content domain in more detail. So here we have tutorial and courses, and they are listed. And one of the most important one is this series on this morphology. Here you have a gallery of images. They are melanotic pigments here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here. But they are signals of different disorders. The signal is that this is likely to be neurofibromatosis, but this is not, and this is not, this is not, this is not, this is, and this is, and this is not, and so forth. There are also diagnoses and videos, and you could see an array or menu, and you could see that Down syndrome is a prototype of this morphology, and you see how many actual videos there are. So if you viewed all these videos, you would see more patients with trisomy 21 than you're likely to see in a lifelong clinical practice, unless you're a super specialist. So again, that's an illustration of another perspective of signals, and you will learn from these what are the signs within each syndrome. So access to clinical eye-openers is at several levels. You can have open access to all of these elements, but there are others, such as clinical photographs and so on, that we cannot place in the open cloud or web, and yet you may not wish to subscribe to gain a complete access, or you may wish to explore it before you make such decisions. So you could obtain a free temporary trial pass, but you need to send us a request. Again, I see signs and signals here, do you? Perhaps you may see an actual video of the contents of CEO. And as an example, here we are showing two mystery stories. One about Julie Andrews' performance in the film Sound of Music and how that links to an older love story on dwarfs and a mysterious genetic disorder, which we think we know what it is. And the other concerns a real Game of Thrones, stories of love, madness, poisoning, politics. But what we discovered is a good evidence of non-paternity, which would be a scandalous situation, largely ignored, or actually totally ignored as far as we know, by established historians. We think these two, believe it or not, stories are sort of original observations unless somebody else shows us otherwise. The third one concerns a problem of nomenclature. We show here nanism, but there are many synonyms to dwarf and midget and so forth. In fact, to this very day, short-statured people resent to be called any of those names, but we do not have a better alternative, a dilemma indeed. So to begin a summary of what we have been presenting, here you see the address of Clinical Eye Openers, but yet there is another address, and that's a companion website, which is very important to us. We call it the Pandora Word Box because it presents the additional perspectives to grasp the importance of visual images, and that is from the fine arts, and to grasp fully the nomenclature, that is, the words that we use to communicate and share our visual impressions. Here is a website that you may wish to visit, which provides information about birth defects. And then there is a teratology information system in Ukrainian, so that if you are not a Ukrainian speaker, you may not wish to visit there. So in the final analysis, why we think this site is relevant to you and many like you. It is because its aim is to open clinical eyes. Anyone interested in human disorders has to use their eyes to see if there are clues, if there are signs that may be signals of what went wrong. And nobody ever has seen enough. There is nobody, no clinician that has seen enough. We all can see more and more. So that the only way to increase your clinical eye opening is to see more. And this website presents continuously an ongoing basis provocative images for the purpose to show how a sign is transformed into a signal, a cluster of signals into syndromes, and how then this is synthesized into possible diagnosis, etiology, mechanisms, and so forth. But we have to present this in small doses. Surely you have experienced the impact of too much. You go to a museum and you get overloaded with images, or you see an atlas. You see too much, you remember too little. So small dose but steady is important. And so that we illustrate continuously provocative images with verbal and written communications. And that means that your chance to understand medical English terminology increase proportionally. and you will acquire concurrently medical English terminology with a sharper clinical eye. To accomplish all of this, it's important that you have steady access to small doses, continuously exposed through some convenient manner, and this website is available through the phone and tablet. So whenever you feel like you are ready to see one more image, they appear regularly and you can open those that provoke you the most. So the access here is quite convenient, and I hope you take advantage of this. So this is the end of this tour. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will join us. And until then, with my very best wishes, I say goodbye.